Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another webinar in the Rig Run Recovery Zone webinar series. Today, we're joined by Leeane Bird, who's standing in for Paul Bird. So we're very pleased to have her here today. If you are watching this live, if you wouldn't mind just turning off your cameras and mics just now, that would be great. But if you do have any questions, pop them in the chat and we'll try to get to those at the end. Remember that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on the Rig Run Recovery Zone website. So today we've got Leeane Bird. She's the founder of Leeane Bird Wellbeing and Adventure. She's got many strings to her bow. She's a qualified stand-up paddleboard instructor. She's a surf coach, a personal trainer, and a yoga instructor. But she's mainly here today to talk about stand-up paddleboarding, and I think that's an activity that really seems to have become popular over the last few years. So we're all excited to hear a little bit more about why this might be and what are the benefits of taking part in stand-up paddleboarding. So over to you, Leeane.
Oh, thank you, Shona. So welcome, everyone. I'm here on behalf of ASI, the Association of Surfing Instructors, who are the world's leading training organisation. And I'm going to be talking to you about paddleboarding. So I'm just going to bring up my screen. Hopefully you can see that. Is that all there?
Yes, we can see that.
Fantastic. Okay. So, yeah, as it's entitled, what's SUP? So what's stand-up paddleboarding? So I thought I'd start with actually answering that question. What actually is paddleboarding? And I was surprised. I was doing some filming yesterday, actually, and even though we were doing it on stand-up paddleboarding, there was still a lack of awareness of actually what SUP was, supping, paddleboarding, actually what it is. So I thought I would start with that. So basically, the Cambridge Dictionary sort of definition is a sport in which you travel across water or ride on the waves using a board, which you can sit or stand on. But it's a lot more than that. It's a very versatile sport. There's so many different ways that you can engage in the sport, from whitewater to leisure, so just paddling for pleasure with friends, touring coasts or rivers, racing, SUP surfing, and then also SUP yoga, fitness, Pilates, and even games such as SUP polo. So there's something for everyone when it comes to paddleboarding. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what the benefits are of actually taking part in the sport. So first of all, if we look at the psychological benefits and emotional benefits of paddleboarding, can help to relieve stress. And there's many people I've taken on this exact location, actually, in this picture, on the river, and instantly they feel calm. And taking part in water activities has shown to increase resilience and have a significant effect on positive effect on people's mood and their self-esteem. People report feeling happier where they're in the proximity of blue space and involved in blue space. And generally, when people are engaged in outdoor activities, they are happier. And being engaged in outdoor activities also has been shown to build your resilience to stress. So doing it regularly will help you to be able to bounce back quicker or not get as affected by stressful events. There's also an increased sense of self and confidence that comes with doing activities such as paddleboarding. It can help to increase your confidence by being able to show yourself that you can do something, achieving small goals and maybe bigger goals as well. And again, I've worked with someone who had anxiety, and they said, just by being able to stand up, they felt they'd achieved something, and that boosted their confidence to achieve things in their everyday life. It helps bring us closer to nature, just by the nature of where people generally will paddleboard. You are surrounded by trees, sea, river, lakes. It's stunning locations, and particularly people who live and work in very urban environments, that can have a significantly positive impact on emotions and mental well-being. It also, so like I said, supports anxiety. So I gave an example of that before. It can help lift mood. So that's really helpful, particularly for people who are suffering from mild depression. And also there's a human connection. So there's a psychosocial benefit of the water environment from people engaging in those activities together, which is particularly important for older people and children who may, particularly those that have been affected by COVID. And lastly, there's an environmental well-being benefit. So people who are engaged in activities such as litter picking or sort of social science as part of their paddleboarding activities will, and just generally from connecting to nature, will have a heightened environmental well-being. So moving on to physical benefits, it's an all-rounder activity in terms of our physical health as well. So it can help strengthen your core. Studies have shown multi-directional core improvements from the left and right side, and from the front stomach muscles, so your obliques and your rectus abdominis and your transverse abdominis, all strengthened from doing paddleboarding itself, but also doing activities that involve paddleboarding. There's increased muscular endurance, which is across all parts of the body, from your legs, arms, your back muscles in particular, latissimus dorsi. Everything is increased in its endurance, but also in your strength as well, particularly if you're engaging in more less so if you're doing leisure paddleboarding, but if you're doing more racing, white water, it's hard work. You really feel yourself working. If you're new to paddleboarding, the leisure paddleboarding, actually you can feel yourself working. There's a lot of muscular endurance and strength required just to stand on the board. And then also we've got SUP fitness and SUP yoga, where you will feel an increased benefit from the muscular and strength. It also increases our cardiovascular fitness. So again, doing sort of more leisurely paddles is not going to do that as much, but if you're doing longer tours, if you're doing white water, racing, surfing, and you're pushing your heart rate that little bit further, then you will have an increased cardiovascular fitness, particularly things like surfing, where you're doing bursts and then rest, bursts and then rest, has been really shown to have a benefit, as well as sort of high level things like racing, because you're keeping your heart rate higher, and white water. There's also improved balance, so both static and dynamic balance from engaging in paddleboarding, helping to increase your neuromuscular coordination around your ankles, knees, hips, and also the strength of those joints to be able to help you to balance. And again, depending on how you're using your paddleboard, you can increase your speed and power. And it's a low impact activity. So unlike things like running, which create pounding on the joints, which is not good for some people, paddleboarding is a really low impact sport. And as long as you're doing the correct technique, should be involved in like minimal injury. And as such, it also strengthens our joints and our bones. So, you know, from your ankles, knees, hips, and even your shoulders, there's some strengthening that occurs in those joints, again, if using the correct technique. So paddleboarding is also a fantastic addition to other sports. It can be fantastic cross training. So as we mentioned, there's the core and balance training that benefits that come from it. So it can really help you with that because, you know, it requires such a good balance. So any sports that require the same from surfing, snowboarding, skateboarding, wakeboarding, skiing, anything like that, paddleboarding is great cross training for that. Involves upper body strength and endurance with your upper back and arm muscles and your core. So anything which requires upper body strength, like kayaking, canoeing, rowing, and swimming, again, fantastic cross training. There's also the cardiovascular fitness, which it helps with any sports that you require that, from your running, cycling, football, basketball, tennis. It's a fantastic cross-training activity. So if you want to diversify your workout, engage in different muscle groups, maybe break repetition from other movements you're doing in other sports, you need more of a rest, it's a great activity for that, which will help to maintain movement and blood flow, but give your body a chance to recover. And there's also the mental well-being and stress reliefs that we've mentioned. So it can help give you that dip away from other sports, particularly if you're engaged in them in a higher level. And it can help to rehabilitate and prevent injury due to basically all those things that I've talked about. But also, if you're doing anything particularly like SUP yoga, it can really increase your flexibility, but it can also generally improve your coordination. So now, hopefully, I've got you really inspired and you want to give it a go. I'm just going to talk a little bit about doing it safely. So if you decide, brilliant, I want to give this paddleboarding malarkey a go, there's a few key points to consider. So first of all, it's really important to wear protective equipment and clothing. So making sure you have a leash. If you're doing SUP surfing, that's a straight leash, but in all other sports, that's a coiled leash. So it looks like old-fashioned telephone. And again, in the majority of environments, you would use a waist quick release belt as well. And then wearing a buoyancy aid, so that if you are to fall in, that will help to keep you afloat. And it's really important, even if you're a strong swimmer, to wear those, as well as insulating layers. So just remembering that just because it might be a lovely hot sunny day, the water temperature is still cold, and if you fall in, you can suffer from cold water shock, which can significantly affect you. So the next one is to check the conditions. So always have a look at the forecast, not just before you go, but on the day. And then also once you're there, making a decision, it may not be what it says on the forecast. So checking wind strength and direction, river levels, tides, all sorts of things. And the key one that people get caught out by is offshore breeze, because often the sea can look lovely and calm, but they can get swept out to sea with the offshore breeze. Also important to know your limits. So if you're new to supping, make sure you take a lesson, and not just one actually. As you progress, it's really important to take those further lessons to improve your skills and knowledge. 1.5 hour lesson isn't going to give you the skills you need. And just be honest with your friends and companions about your knowledge and your fitness and your ability, and honest with yourself. And if it doesn't feel right to you, if in doubt, don't go out. Always paddleboard with others, and tell people where you're going and when you're due to be back, so they can keep an eye on you. And then just making sure you take a charged mobile phone in a waterproof pouch, and keep it easily accessible. Try and keep it on you, so you can just have it in a waterproof pouch tucked into your buoyancy aid. So if you get separated from your board, you can still call 999. And just make sure you call if you need any help. Call 999 and ask for the Coast Guard if you're near the sea, or just ask them for the appropriate body. So hopefully you're inspired, you know what to do, know how to do it safely, and you will feel the same as Jacques Cousteau. The sea, once it's cast its spell, holds one in its net of wonder forever. And that's me. So hopefully you're really inspired. And if anyone has any questions, then please ask.
Thank you very much, Leeane. That was really interesting. I had not appreciated there were so many variations of stand-up paddleboarding. I certainly didn't know about SUP yoga, and I definitely didn't know about SUP polo, which sounds very interesting. Got to admit, I'm not sure I would really want anyone to see me doing a downward dog on a stand-up paddleboard. That might be a shock to some swimmers. And I thought it was really interesting to hear that, you know, it's not just about improving your core strength and working on your, you know, your upper body muscular strength, which I think maybe a lot of people kind of automatically assume that's the main benefit of doing a sport like this. But I thought it was really interesting how you started even talking about the sort of benefits on mental well-being and how it can improve your mood and lift your confidence and help relieve stress.
Yeah, it's something that people don't go into the sport necessarily for that, but that's what a lot of people end up finding. I asked once for some people to give me some words of how paddleboarding made them feel, and the majority of them were mental health, you know, freedom, confidence. Someone I summed it up perfectly, and they said it was a Control-Alt-Delete for their day, and I thought that was brilliant. It just sort of resets them, and yeah, whether you like to just have a leisure sort of paddle or you like something more adventurous, it's for everyone, I think, and all shapes and sizes, all ages. There's, you know, there's boards out there for everyone. There's it's just, you know, important to get those lessons. And you know, and on the physical side of things, you know, a lot of people think that you use your arms, but actually when you're paddleboarding, you're really using your core. You're not using your arms much at all. They are involved, and you know, but it's the power is coming from your core, from your thigh, and using your back. So it's such a good all round, because your legs are working, your arms are working, but your core is and your glutes and your everything is doing a lot of the work. So it's a brilliant sport.
And as you said, improving that core stability and core strength is also so important for helping and benefiting other activities that people might be involved in, whether it's weight training or running or exercise classes or cycling. That is a great way of doing something fun that helps improve. It's better than doing 60 crunches on the floor, isn't it?
Or
something
doing
fun,
just being on the wobble board all the time.
I have a couple of questions for you. The first one, so you're based in Wales, is that right?
Yeah.
So I'm up in the northeast of Scotland. So the first question is about wetsuits or dry suits, and what your kind of recommendation would be, whether you think that's something that people need to be wearing when they're doing stand-up paddleboarding. Obviously, on the west coast and in some parts of the north coast of Scotland, we benefit from the Gulf Stream, and the sea temperatures can be a little bit warmer. But I can tell you for certain that over here in the northeast corner, it can be quite chilly even in summer. So what are your recommendations?
So there's so much variety of clothing now, but the important thing is that people have an insulating layer. Even if you regularly cold water dip, it's still quite a shock for your body to fall from a board where you may be in the sunshine and you're lovely and warm, and then you fall into the water. And there are people who have done stuff for years and never had a problem, and occasionally, and then one-off, they have the cold water shock. And it's something that if you just relax and lie on your back, it will calm down. But it can be dangerous because people panic, and they can either breathe in water or they just start panicking and can't get back on the board. So it's really important to have that insulating layer and respect the sea temperature that you're going to be falling into. So that could be a wetsuit. That could be, there's a lot of places now that do wetsuit bottoms and wetsuit tops separately.
Okay.
Or you can have wetsuit bottoms and a light sort of fleece or something, and then change of top. In your bag, if you take layers with you, or if you're right by the shore having them. Or there's long janes or long johns which are sleeveless, and then you have like jackets that can go over the top. And then when it's cooler, dry suits are fantastic. Or you can get separate dry bottoms and dry tops, so you can put layers underneath, which are just fantastic. I paddle with my dry bottoms and top and fleece and a little bobble hat, and I'm sorted.
It's interesting. No, I wasn't aware you could get this separate tops and bottoms. So that's interesting.
They're really good for people who feel really constricted by wetsuits, because they can feel suffocating stuff. So having the separates is a really good way around that. And also, if you're not a standard size, you can get your different size bottoms and tops, and they actually end up fitting you a lot better as well. So all right, thank you for that.
And I guess sort of the final question is, what should people do if they want to try this out? Is there some sort of website that lists the qualified instructors on it, or what would you recommend?
So with ASI, we've got a map of all of our accredited SUP schools. So it's not all the instructors, but all of the SUP schools are out there. So it's a good place to start. But whoever you go with, it's really important now. I think we've highlighted with a few instances, unfortunately, one which we had in Wales, is the importance of asking the question of what qualifications they have, what experience they have, and are they actually qualified to take you into the environment that they're taking you into. and just do due diligence at the end of the day, same as you wouldn't take your car to any mechanic. You'd find out that they're reputable first. So just do sort of look into the qualifications that they do have. But good start is to go onto the ASI website and see if there's a SUP school near you.
And can you remind me again what those initials stand for?
Sorry, there's me, Association of Surfing Instructors. Let me just check that, because
I'm not putting you on the spot.
when you like say something so often and you think,
in case anybody wants to look up the website. And
it's not easy if you type in ASI, it doesn't come up. So if you go to Academy of Surfing Instructors, sorry, not association, there we go.
Academy of Surfing Instructors.
academyofsurfing.com is the website.
Perfect. Okay, that's super useful. Excellent.
So, yes, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time today. I think that's really interesting. I'm feeling inspired to try more stand-up paddleboarding in the summer holidays. A friend of mine had an inflatable stand-up paddleboard that we tried out in a very sheltered cove just a couple of weeks ago, and that was great fun. So yeah, maybe time to do a couple more lessons.
Yeah, and try that downward facing dog.
Oh, we'll see about that. Okay, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Shona. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.